Thundergrunt.
Well, hello, guys.
Hello, Bob.
Bob, Jamie, Jimmy, how are you?
Great.
Good. Everybody
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Because today we're going to talk about Toxic Nostalgia, the movie. Member Berries, the movie. I'm just quoting Twitter now.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I don't actually think that. We're going to talk about Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Ernest Cline's, well, not Ernest Cline's movie,
Well,
Steven
book.
Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg.
Ernest Cline's book-to-movie adaptation of everything on Earth.
It's a
Of
collaboration.
everything on there. Yeah, exactly.
It's a movie that I was actually, I don't really want to talk about, but you guys know that, and I'm happy to hear your take on
Yes.
it. Just because the internet angered me so much, guys.
Okay.
But
So I want to,
yeah.
do a little preliminary statement that.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Butter
'cause
us up.
Well,
Let us
okay.
know what's
'cause-
coming.
So for one thing, I think we haven't done this
Spielberg
much.
beat me up as a kid.
Spielberg. Yeah.
Oh,
Jaws. No, one of my first movie memory, the first movie I saw in the movies was E.T. And, it solidified my love of cinema from the age of 2.
you
And
can't see this, but he's tearing up
remember-
right now.
I
like-
remember being in the theater at the age of... It's like one of my first memories.
It was actually Mac and me, but he doesn't.
Yeah, it was
really
shit,
remember
you're
it
right.
wrong.
Now
That's
that
why
I
he likes
think of
Coke
it...
more than Pepsi, right?
No, but so I've loved Spielberg like since I could like understand what a movie was. We don't really talk about this much that a lot of times if there's a problem in the movie, it might not have existed in the script. It might have worked in the script, and at some point during the process, whether it's casting, locations, actually making the movie, something happened where what they had planned to do in the script they could no longer do in the movie, or it just didn't make the cut. Point being, maybe some of the things that I'm going to say negative didn't exist in the script like they might have worked before they started shooting. So I just want to say that because I'm going to say some negative shit.
Okay.
And it just... it-
Would you agree? Is that...
Jamie, we're okay with him being negative, right? We both want to just put that out there, I feel like, right?
Absolutely. I think we'll see how negative he gets.
All right, yeah.
I feel like
I hate Spielberg.
I feel like
judge.
your negativity is going to be so nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be like it's gonna be an embarrassment to negativity
All right.
everywhere.
Right.
Let's-
I thought
let's-
it could be better.
But anyway, thanks for letting me say
Okay.
that. Let's
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
into it.
Ready Player One. This was an adaptation of a book that everyone around this table has not read except Jamie.
I have, and I barely remember.
You don't
it.
remember it. So we can't talk from the source
man.
material aspect, really, right?
Yeah, I can. When we get to like talking about adaptation, which we will, I can mention a couple things that are different.
Okay.
But that's
The
fine.
only thing that I can point to on the internet that's not us, Movie Bob on YouTube, he did a great Ready Player One fixes Ready Player One
Okay,
video where he,
good.
Oh, okay.
it taught me a lot because I didn't know, but it talks about the problematic elements of the book that this actually fixed.
Oh, okay.
About how like the book treats women as goals and trophies,
Right.
and how this kind of fixed that.
So
And
go
everyone-
watch that right now.
Yeah, go watch that
Yeah.
and then come back.
Come back and
right.
listen.
Yeah,
Hit the pause button.
right. So let's talk about the source material.
Yeah, well, Ernest Cline or Ernie Cline, I think is what people
Yeah, I
call
think
him.
he
I don't
goes
know
by
if
Ernie
he really
Cline,
goes by
yeah.
Ernie or...
I'm pretty sure the trailer said Ernest, I think.
I
but
know
it
his
might have.
name, like on the book and stuff, is Ernest, but everybody calls him Ernie Cline. I don't know if
It's
they're just
easier.
his friends.
He doesn't want him to think about Ernest.
So
That's
if
right.
I flip into Ernie, it's just what everybody I know talks about. He had a really interesting career. If you look at him coming up, he kind of is tied to the Ain't It Cool News world and stuff like that.
And Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. Well, exactly. His first, I think, hit was this Buckaroo Banzai sequel that he wrote.
Oh,
Just kind of
really?
a fan script, and it kind of got popular. And then he became like a slam poet in Austin. And he so Fanboys was
Did you read the oral history of Fanboys?
I did.
I did too.
Yeah, that was really great.
It
Yeah,
was great.
And it's kind of fascinating because he wrote that, and it's very nostalgia and filled with that sort of thing. But it also had here's the weird thing about that. I think it had Harvey Weinstein producing it.
Yeah.
Harry Knowles was the guy who basically broke that script by reviewing it on Ain't It Cool News, and that's kind of how it.
Two guys that are now like erased from the face of the earth.
And Kevin Spacey was the other producer.
Right.
Triggers
Kevin
Productions.
Spacey. Oh yeah, you're right.
The trio.
The three of them are
trio.
gone now.
So
wow.
So there you go. And now T.J. Miller's in the. No, I don't know. If we won't put it through.
Miller is in the
you know what? I was actually
he's on the cusp.
Not about the script, but I was really happy that T.J. Miller's face wasn't in this movie.
Yeah, I think that was a deliberate choice.
It was interesting. I'm not sure how.
Because I didn't want to support a movie with T.J. Miller in it, but Yeah, I'm gonna see Deadpool too. I mean,
I know.
Yeah,
come on, put Christopher Plummer in there.
Yeah, would love it.
It would be so good.
Would absolutely love it.
That's our negative portion of the show.
There you go.
T.J. Miller hates.
Fucking T.J. Miller, fire that man.
Free Silicon Valley. So I think after Fanboys, which had this long history, and like you said, there's a great oral history online, but I can't remember.
You probably can just Google oral history of Fanboys.
It's fascinating.
Excellent.
It's really good.
It's a great like late '90s, early aughts thing about the business. Really, I mean, just how things were going.
Yeah, and then he really didn't have any screenwriting stuff after that, after Fanboys. And then he wrote Ready Player One. I mean, who knows? He could have been doing script doctoring or doing all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. But then he wrote Ready Player One, and it became really popular again with the fan culture. I mean, he seemed like he had a pulse on that fan culture. The Ain't It Cool News world and all that stuff that was going on. The book became huge, and they hired Zak Penn to adapt it. Zak Penn, who's done Last Action Hero,
Incredible Hulk,
Men in Black,
right.
X-Men, the Avengers. The
Avengers.
Well,
right.
we'll talk about that in a later episode. He was hired to adapt it. He did a first draft, and then Spielberg came on, had him rewrite it. And that's kind of
he had Ernest Cline rewrite it, or Zak Penn.
Yeah, is it clear what Cline's role is on the script?
Zak Penn definitely says that Cline collaborated on the script. I'm just gonna guess. I just had this feeling he was a sounding board a lot, but a very what's the word? Intense sounding board. Like he was there. You know what I mean? I just get that feeling because they definitely a lot of times writers will kind of try to make it like I came up with all the good ideas. And Zak Penn is definitely not doing that with this. He's more than happy to include Ernest Cline as helping him to break story. And Spielberg.
And I thought that was really refreshing about this project, this adaptation. The inclusive, you don't really hear about that very often.
No, they advertise with his name.
Yeah, you don't really hear about the original author.
Isn't that
because
the book became a cult? I mean, I'd be honest with you guys, I don't think I've ever had a book recommended to me more in my life.
Me too.
Oh, really?
Which is probably one of the reasons I didn't read it at first.
Well, the Bible.
Good point.
You're right. My parents kept recommending that to me all my childhood, and I just kept not reading it.
I definitely had people.
Harry Knowles recommended the Bible.
The Bible. I'm pretty sure there's a movie called The Bible. So yeah.
But I had people who I would meet for the first time, and we would find out we had shared mutual interests. And one of the first things they would ask me is, "Have you read Ready Player One?" I'm like, no.
It's almost that essential fanboy kind of.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of that dividing line, and I realize we're not talking about a script right now, but I feel like there's that dividing line of like Big Bang Theory geeks versus other geeks who don't embrace it as much. Yeah. And this movie definitely kind of feels like it saunters down that middle line of that. Like everyone's ready to hate it or love it, and you can't.
And from the book, I mean, I think what it adapted was it condensed time a lot, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
What's the female character, Artemis? It gave her much more of a role.
Okay.
Like
She's not a trophy anymore.
She's not a trophy anymore.
She's almost a better character. Absolutely.
I think she's the best
a main character almost. Yeah, like you could probably just get rid of Parzival.
She could be the main character.
She could be the main character.
She has a purpose. She has a backstory that really needs to be settled by the end.
The only thing she doesn't have is I mean, I don't know if we're skipping ahead here, but like
kind of. It's
fine.
The
character motivation is weird because his motivation is like his Halliday's beloved in his life, and he wants to figure this out.
Right.
Whereas she's given this motivation of she wants to stop the tyrant.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So she has much bigger stakes.
Right.
The
But she's not like
resistance.
that big of an 80s fan. She like knows about it, but she's not like, she's only into it because she has to be, whereas he like actually loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
difference with those two characters. That's why I don't think she could. You'd have to change that about her to make her the main
The
character.
main character.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You could almost see a version of this where he's the side character. Like there's
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly,
because-
yeah.
sneaky 80s mentor knowledge guy.
And she
Right.
and she
she's
recruits him to help her finish the
Fix the
revolution.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because her goal is to stop Sorrento. You know,
She
and
doesn't
his,
want-
his goal is just to win.
Is to win
yeah,
a game.
Yeah.
She wants vengeance for like her father and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, right. She's
so
a better.
to me,
she's
like
a way
she's
better
way
character.
better. Like but that's not what happened.
Yeah. And
Do you think a lot of this too is just? I mean, between Parzival and Halliday, they both kind of just feel like surrogates for Cline. You know what I mean? They both just. It feels this movie felt like somebody just writing them their ultimate
Themselves
fantasy
in-
about
into
themselves.
yeah.
And they forgot to put a character in there because they're just talking from inward out. You know what I mean?
that could very well be. And I think also, we could talk about this, but this might be jumping ahead a little bit. But I don't know they give enough time for us with the main character at all.
No.
He's like nothing.
He's
just the
nothing.
most vanilla nothing.
A lot of people said he's the like Twilight was for girls. He's like he's like that for boys because he's just an empty shell.
They give a couple moments,
You know?
right? So she says,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's his like through line is very simple. She says like, you don't live in the real world, you live in the oasis. And in the end, like he's like, you know, we spend time in the real world now. So it's like very simple, you know.
That's his arc.
Yeah, that's
As
it.
he learns not to.
I want to
he learns
now
to
live
delete
in the
his
real
Facebook
world.
account every
Yeah,
month.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about him, and that's why I think he makes in some ways the weaker of the two characters.
Yeah.
Is his stakes. Let's say if he just gives up the quest. Let's say if he's like, this is too hard. Nothing really changes in his
Yeah.
life. He just stays who he is.
Yeah.
And he keeps playing the game. And his life is the same. And his life is, it's not like he's about
Well,
to die.
his
or
caretakers
something.
did get exploded.
Exploded. Yeah, we'll talk about that later too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
well, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about adaptation since we're
Sure.
both
Yeah,
both
exactly.
talking about the fact that given the source material, but they did enhance her character, but where do you draw the line and like make the decisions of what you can change and what you can't change, how faithful to the original material, you know? Because they totally could have just said, you know what, a lot of people like this book, but we could make a different main character, you know, like if we adapted it one way. So what do you think about that?
I think the massive change wasn't a character change here, though.
Okay.
From what I understand, Jamie, you might remember, it's the actual like structure of the contest.
Oh, really?
Because the original
Okay.
contest, from what I understand, was just a race, right? And they added the 3 key thing and the 3 different like things you had to figure out in the for the movie.
I don't think so. I don't
Right?
think so.
Okay, that's not.
Yeah,
I
think they might have even added the race, the car race.
I don't think
really?
the race was in the book.
Yeah, the race wasn't
I was
in the
gonna
book.
let you
It's
finish
kind of the-
before I like.
Okay, see, I don't know.
It's-
I'm basing off other people telling you
fans
this.
So my
Explain it.
memory
Yeah.
is it's the opposite.
Fansplain me.
It's actually the opposite. That,
Okay.
that first race wasn't even in the book. It was just kind of this random thing that he stumbled upon. But there was more in the book. Like he went to school inside the Oasis.
Okay, so they had
And
that.
and that was in the beginning. So you got to know the character, you got to know the world, you got to know how sad and dystopian the world was, and how sad his life was, and how he was a nobody, and one day he wanted to be somebody.
Yeah.
There was more of that. Whereas I think the way the movie kind of enters it, it skips over a lot of
All
that.
that. Yeah.
And it just makes him like, he's kind of cool, right? He's kind of
Yeah.
good. He knows what he's doing. He already kind of has a secret knowledge over everybody else in
Right.
some ways.
Yeah.
He seems almost as good as Artemis from the start.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Well,
figures out
we're
the
given
race.
like 15 minutes of exposition from
Yeah.
his voice.
Yes.
He's already
Yes.
pretty much omniscient and knows what's going on completely from our perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I knew that, and I was watching it and the whole time I was like, Jimmy's going to bring up all this exposition front-loaded. Because it's front-loaded exposition.
It
completely.
felt to me, okay, it felt to me like the Blade Runner voiceover where it's like, why don't you just not
Show
have
us.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's
Why don't
like
you
no
just take
character.
it out?
There's no character to it. It doesn't really expose anything. It's just
She was a replicant.
Yeah,
And,
it's a little like a prologue to me. Like here's the
Yes, that's good. That's
here's
really
here's
good
what it
point.
reminded me of, and this is a good question of adaptation. There's all this information in the book, and the way books do it is they weave that stuff inside because you can say what they're thinking. So just a bad example. This isn't what the book does, but it could be like the car race. He could be remembering 30 years ago when such and such happened, and this. So you can kind of weave it all in and out with their memories. How do you do that if you have all that? How do you do that and just kind of get out of the way? Do you not do it at all and just let people learn on the fly, which is actually would have been my choice for this movie?
I would too. I actually would say the same exact thing.
Yeah, just catch up.
I don't think it was that hard to understand. It basically was tropes that we've seen in other movies.
Also, we're almost there.
We
have VR and stuff.
Right.
They understand what's happening.
It's not hard to fathom.
It felt like it was dumbed down, to be honest.
Way dumbed
down.
down.
The audience isn't going to understand VR. We have to explain it to them.
What does it mean?
The audience isn't going to understand that there's this big. It's funny in the book. It was almost like an MMO RPG.
Okay.
Which is what this is, but nobody uses that term anymore.
Well, can I throw something out? The choice that I would have made if I had to do the VO, I would have changed. This would be a big change in the movie, but I would have made it Ferris Bueller. And I would have had him actually breaking the fourth wall and just looking at us. And
interesting.
Yeah, like cause it's got this whole '80s bent to it.
Oh yeah,
I probably would have just broken the fourth wall.
So would you have actually had Ferris Bueller?
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Well,
that's what I thought.
Possible's like a non-character, so why not have a younger, digitized Matthew Broderick?
Yeah,
have him in there looking at.
Well, I was thinking about that myself and other adaptations that have used prologues very effectively, and Lord of the Rings jumps out.
Yes,
And Lord of the Rings had like a different character that wasn't going to be involved. She comes in later, but Ferris Bueller could have been that character.
Yeah.
I almost wondered if it would have just been better to kind of give that sort of thing and maybe like a little short film.
I think a 7-minute like the Lord of the Rings, they set up the whole world in 7 minutes.
They set up the whole world and it was great fun to watch.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing Fellowship is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie actually. And I remember coming out of it and I was like, I know obviously we got 3 9-hour Hobbit movies, but I was like, they did the entire Hobbit in like 5 minutes and it was great. Like,
fantastic.
How did they do that?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I use it as a teaching when I have clients who send me scripts who have a ton of world building and rules and mythology to explain. Often it's not done well, and I use the Lord of the Rings prologue as an example of how to communicate it really efficiently.
I not only did that prologue.
That does have VO though.
Yeah, but
it does.
It's its own thing, though. You know what I mean? It's the VO doesn't continue.
It's not a Well, like you're saying, it's not a character. It's not the main character,
right?
Too,
right.
I guess,
right. And there's something about that one that it sets the tone for the movie. It's exciting to watch. There's all these things. It feels right. There's just so many things that's cool about it.
It's beautiful too. It's like really well done. It's like everything that Jackson loves in one little setup. And it's great.
But like you said, it feels motivated.
It feels motivated, and because it feels like it's coming from Tolkien or something.
Yeah.
And it feels like I don't know, when I saw it, I just sat there and I was like, okay, I trust him.
Yeah.
I trust him now. He set me in a trust, and then it was like, tell the story. However, I wonder what that movie would have been like if they just didn't do it.
That.
I have no idea.
Would you be confused?
And I read the books and I knew things.
I wouldn't be confused because I know Lord of the Rings, but I imagine like my mom would be confused.
Yeah.
That was for like my grandmother and
that's
my mom,
important.
right?
It
is.
The first consultant I ever went to, his name's Craig Kellum. He actually was George Carlin's agent and Lily Tomlin's agent. He used to tell me, man. Your story needs to be so easy to understand that you could go to like your grandma who has like one working ear and tell her your story and she would understand it and not have any questions for you. It needs to be simple and clear. And this is anything but. Yeah.
But what Jamie said though, I feel like the VO's there, what you said. The VO's there, but it's not that difficult to understand. No. I think this movie is really
unnecessary.
Simple. Yeah. This movie is extremely simple to understand. It just doesn't think it is.
It feels like only an old, like, 7-year-old director might not, who I love, might think it's hard to understand.
I mean, people understood Avatar.
Yeah.
They understood Jumanji.
Yeah.
It's weird how many movies.
Matrix.
Right. Right. I mean, like, The Matrix like makes total sense.
They didn't need to give us huge prologue. And what The Matrix does do is they give us a fish out of water hero to describe it. Where in this case, We don't have that.
I think that would have helped.
He's
big
already
time.
he's already completely ingratiated.
He's already in it. Like,
Yeah.
imagine another version of the story where he's never joined in the Oasis. Like,
Yeah.
he's been the non-tech guy, or he couldn't afford
He
it.
couldn't
until
afford
now.
it,
and
and
now
now
he
he
has to
does.
learn on the fly. Oh, it's about the '80s, and it's this and it's that. That movie has a vehicle for that.
Yeah.
To tell the exposition. So maybe that's part of why
That's-
they chose, because they're trying to get us in his head as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So that way we will start hoping and dreaming the way he hopes.
He
and
does.
dreams.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
maybe I'm explaining why.
We meet him when he's already ultimate cool.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have a character throw out the DeLorean, you know what I mean? he's like, he's like looks cool as hell. He throws the DeLorean out.
Oh,
gets
this
in it,
poor
goes
guy.
on-
He's got the best vehicle ever.
Right, yeah. I don't like. It's hard to feel sorry for him in real life when he's when his
In the-
in-game life is so cool.
Yeah, and his in-game life, he basically does better than everybody, even Artemis. In the
He's
first
good.
task, he's
Yeah.
really good.
He's
Yeah.
really fucking good.
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though the book made a big deal about he's this nobody who suddenly, is on the board,
Thrust
the scoreboard.
into.
And
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, Jamie, if he was nobody that just joined the Oasis in the beginning of the movie,
Mhm.
that would have been way more. You're right. It would have been way more
Yeah.
interesting because
It's a different movie,
We're kind of
obviously.
meeting him as a hero already.
Right.
yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like just there. Like it's right before he becomes Parzival.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
It's like 2 days before
Yeah.
he becomes Parzival.
Or, to keep rewriting this movie, if Artemis was a person who didn't care about it and then her father died or something.
Right.
So she was like, now I care. Now I'm going to go get revenge.
She
but the only
could've
way I can do
learned-
it is through this. Or,
That could have been the way to, you could have followed her character as she learns and as Parzival teaches her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
but I understand that that's not the story they're
Yeah.
telling. So
Exactly. No,
Well,
I know.
What do you think? I don't want to. I know we can't answer this, but what do you think? Like, what do you think Spielberg was happy to go with this setup, with this opening setup? Like, it doesn't seem like it's something he would even do.
You mean
I
the
don't
way
think
it's told?
I don't think the way it's told is traditional of Spielberg in the beginning. At
Yeah,
least the first
agreed.
act is not a traditional
I agree.
Spielberg first act.
You know what's also
I agree.
interesting? Even
Yeah.
after the prologue, there's lots of
There's,
other
it just keeps
exposition.
coming. I wrote this down. It reminded me of pop-up video, right? You're watching it, and then it's
you're
just
really-
like,
That's the
oh,
genius. It's
l-
nostalgic.
and then this was this thing that's really cool, and it's very important that you know this, but I'm telling you right now, so it's completely weightless. Where it just like passes
Yeah,
the
tell me
information.
what I need to know.
Right? The
Yeah.
the like the emotion. We're too busy like catching up with the information to feel anything about it. It's like information
Well,
overload.
can I just say though, in the face of everything you're saying, which I agree with.
Yeah.
In the face of that, the weird part about all of this is I felt like all the complaints everyone had about this movie, I felt like the references were all passive.
I don't need it. I
didn't-
have no problems with
I know,
that.
I didn't, but
Yeah.
like that's what everyone thought. Like, hey, look, here's this.
Who cares?
None of that happened. It was all very passive on screen.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
it's weird that they chose to
For me, the
point
world,
out all the details we did need to know, and then the one thing everyone thought was going to be the problem was so passive. It was just like they didn't point things out; it just happened.
like some things I wanted to ask you guys, based on the movie that I'm still confused about, because like we didn't get it's like we got crazy amounts of exposition about some things, and then things like you said they completely skipped over the dystopian
Okay.
setting, right?
Yeah,
like there's no exposition about the world.
Some of that which was key to make that character an underdog.
right?
It honestly
there's nothing
wasn't-
that you're shown nothing.
Here's the thing: is I don't really think it was a dystopia. I think it was basically just the slums are now just big stacks, and there's a city. The city looked generally normal.
yeah.
Like when the cops showed up and stuff. it
Yeah,
just
I was
looked
like,
nowadays.
so it's just a normal city, and now people live in trailer parks that are stacked.
Yeah, and they have cool computers, so life's not that
I was
bad.
like,
you know?
I was like, if I, you know what, I could honestly live in that, and I'd be fine. I don't need
Yeah,
much
and
more.
that's a problem though.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
problem
No,
that
real
you
world
feel
wasn't
that
that
way.
different.
Yeah.
So,
So some of the questions I have is, why does the IOI have a militia? Why are they allowed to like storm in and like basically imprison people? Like that shit needed explanation.
you
like,
mean the whole boxes, the people in the boxes that were like they
Yeah.
owed hours.
They were in debt.
they were in debt, but why were they allowed to just come and put people in handcuffs?
the movie does
and-
not explain who they were in debt to. That's where I got
Yeah,
confused.
I'm so
Yes.
confused about their place in the world beyond they're just a company.
Like they were in debt to the Oasis the company that owned the Oasis. I forget the name, but they were in debt to that company, and then IOI bought their debt and then said,
they're
you
like-
have to live in a box and do our bidding in the Oasis.
So they're kind of like a credit collector,
Kind of.
like a digital credit
I
collector.
think, honestly, that it should have just been left out.
Yes.
I think that whole thing is so hard to describe, it should have been left out.
And then some other questions,
yeah.
exposition wise, because like this is where I felt like the movie didn't do a good job of world building. For all its efforts to give us information about the world, there were things that were so important to me personally that were completely ignored. Like, okay, like, so when they kidnap Parzival and he wakes up, she says, "Welcome to the Resistance," right? What is the Resistance? All we see is a guy with a shaved head and a tattoo. And there's nobody there. It's like an empty warehouse. And then the next scene, they're on a roof, and he's like, "It's so different here. All the people."
And he's like, "The
Blah,
stacks
blah.
are right
Like,
over there."
yeah,
And I was
like,
"Wha-"
but there's no we haven't seen any resistance. We haven't seen any group. And then the movie never addresses what this
You know what
resistance
the
is.
shame of that is I really like that scene on the roof.
It's so good.
That scene on the roof's really
no,
good, and
but-
like the whole, I was wondering, but wait a minute, why are they're just all in the same city now? I was like,
Yeah.
what's
That I
Yeah,
didn't have
right.
a problem with that. My problem is like, what the fuck is the resistance?
Interestingly enough, and I can't say this for sure, but I don't think a lot of that stuff is even in the book. I think
That's so even weirder.
I don't think he meets her until the very end of the
No,
book.
he doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah.
And additionally, I'm not even sure that resistance stuff was in there or not. Maybe it is. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I read it.
But like, don't you think that stuff's important?
No, speaking
Like-
to the adaptation part of this,
Yeah.
I actually think that I don't think the dystopian angle or bent of this whole story was even necessary.
Gotcha.
Like, this could have just been like 5 years from now in the
Yeah.
in the world we live now, and he's just a suburban kid with a shitty family.
Yeah.
And he's in his basement doing this.
Yeah,
I was like, it doesn't really add
It's
anything.
really relatable already. It's really tangible.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't need it to be like
a corporation taking
this,
over
the world
the world
is about to end.
Well, a corporation taking over the world in our normal life right now is scary.
yeah.
So the fact that it's like a kind of a crappy reality for him doesn't seem to matter that much, because it
Yeah.
would be scary now.
Yeah, no, and that I have comments on that too.
Okay.
But let me ask you a question, though. Faced with all this exposition, what do you think? What are some good techniques to adapt this kind of exposition? Or what are ways, like we talked about the Lord of the Rings, it worked? What are some good exposition pieces that you can think of, or techniques?
I mean,
I think
there. So, you know, I didn't bring it with me,
Show,
but I
don't
have
tell,
I have the exposition Dirty Dozen, and the main one, the one that is like, it's out of nowhere, don't care.
Mhm.
And that's like the rule I call it. If it just comes out of nowhere and it's like thrown at you, like we're not looking for answers.
Right,
It's,
it's
just
just-
answers are just thrown. This movie is one answer after another that we didn't have a question to.
you mean when they're verbally thrown
yes,
at you? Okay.
but it's all verbal.
But
Right.
I think does that rule that doesn't apply when it comes to visuals.
no.
I think that this movie could have just shown this stuff.
Yes.
And
Without.
I don't
the-
really
the-
need to know how anything works.
No, I agree
I can.
with you.
Yeah. They put on the glasses. They're in the Oasis.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, in this movie, I'd honestly, and I'm sure they did. I'm sure they tested it without the
Yeah.
thing in the beginning. The thing in the beginning feels like a late thing. Like they
Yeah,
added it
like they
after they
added
did a
it.
test.
I
Yeah.
hate the title card.
And
I
yeah,
hate. It feels like they edited in the title card in a weird place.
Yeah, agree.
if I had
Yeah.
to bet, I bet that whole beginning, that prologue, came late in the game.
How about that?
An early cut. I just had that feeling. Though, I guess they have a lot of material that they probably had to shoot for it.
Are you saying you think test audiences ruined this movie?
I
A
think
little
they
bit?
showed it to China, and China said, "We don't understand.
Confused.
This is no."
Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
not picking on
understand why
China.
the Asian characters had to have Asian accents. That didn't make sense to me either.
You know, but there's stuff that I thought they actively did that was a right choice for adapting this book and this premise and not doing that. Like the fact that they made Parzival and her look so weird in game.
Yeah.
I was like, that's enough that I don't need to. Like, I think some people were confused what was reality and wasn't, but
Gotcha.
they look so cartoonish. You don't need to explain to me
that they're in another
that
world.
they're in another world
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
inside of a
yeah.
computer.
I would have done without the voiceover, but I guess
Add some shots from Hackers where it just shows like circuitry boards, like when they put them. You know what I mean? They didn't really have that. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was. Like the Matrix or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
They kind of left that out, which might have helped.
yeah.
Like a visual to be like, oh, they're going digital now. Okay.
Yeah, some sort of like light speed version.
There was like a slight light thing, but
Yeah.
it wasn't established.
It
It was like
wasn't-
once. It like oddly enough, it only happened
or like
once.
sliders going through the
Right.
portal. Yeah,
They
that
just
would've been
needed that
cool.
more because there's a
Yeah.
lot of portals in this movie, and I didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah,
Why the portals existed.
yeah.
I think
You know.
also though, back to your point
Exposition.
about exposition. I agree. I think the best exposition is the one the audience has a question for,
Right.
and then it gets revealed somehow.
Yeah.
And you'll usually find more organic ways to reveal that. So if the audience and the character are aligned with the exposition, so if the
Yes,
character
that's
wants
well
to
put.
know the exposition,
Yeah, the
then
audience,
the audience
is,
does, then it's easier to more organically find a way to answer that question.
and it's unsatisfying in this movie because no one's asking for these questions, and you know, like
'Cause
all
they
the
already
answers,
know,
yeah,
and
all
we're
the
getting up to
answers,
speed.
and even when it does seem like somebody is answering something to another character in the story, it kind of feels unearned. For instance, when they go into the Halliday Files,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the guy who's leading, the robot who's leading it all, he's basically saying stuff that Parzival would have already heard 100 times, and there's no reason he needs to listen to it. Like, so it's like,
As you already know.
yeah,
If you're saying as you already know.
as you know, as that's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
If a character says "as you know,"
Yeah.
I instantly know you need to work on that exposition because it's a force.
Is it also weird that with all the exposition they didn't describe things that, like why the journals had? Why do you have to physically walk in the Oasis to?
Well, the big
Is that weird?
The big logical thing that it's been bothering me that I've never had a chance to talk to anybody about is was that guy the curator to everybody?
How did he have time?
There's billions of people
There's
there.
billions of people in
And
the world.
It would be the worst computer system
He
in
would
museum
have to have
ever known to man.
godlike powers, multiple infinite consciousness.
My thought is that basically when Parzival walked in, then it activated.
He would come in,
Yeah.
and the rest of the time it was the Oasis.
It was the Oasis.
Yeah.
It was a NPC.
I like it. It works. That'll work for me.
Why
But they
did
don't
he
explain it.
Why did he identify Parzival from the beginning before he?
It doesn't make sense,
Also,
Jamie.
well,
You're
also
right.
let's
I'm
point
with-
out too that the Oasis is a physical place in non-reality where you can see others, and that place was empty like a library.
Oh,
That's
my
the other
gosh,
thing.
yeah.
No one really wanted to go to the library. They don't care about James
That's
Halliday.
true.
They only
That's true.
see. We're dealing. I think one thing a lot of people don't understand with the criticisms of this movie is that Parzival is obsessed, whereas
Yeah.
most people don't care.
Yeah.
The whole '80s thing is really just because of him. It's not every character.
Do you think
You
though the
know?
movie earned his obsession, or are you
No.
bringing that?
No.
to
I don't
it?
think
Yeah.
it. I don't think it did, but I think my knowledge of the book
Right.
and everything helps me. I already was sold
You get
walking
that.
in.
Yeah.
But the movie doesn't earn it.
And not to bring this it seems like we keep hitting the same point with one of our big problems, but when you have those long prologues and all that stuff, it comes at a cost.
Absolutely.
So if you decide to have a 15-minute action scene at the beginning of the movie, there's usually a price to be paid. You usually have to set up things like he's obsessed with that's the type of thing you can't do, because now you got to get to your story because people are
Right.
getting bored.
yeah.
So
What's this about?
exactly. So that his psychology, his needs, all that stuff is sacrificed at the altar of the 15-minute prologue.
Of exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Agreed. World building.
I honestly think, and there you could then take the time to do that afterwards, like take the next 15
Right.
or 20 minutes, but then people might get bored. They might be, I watched
Plus,
the prologue.
it was
I'm watching
already
this
a
other thing.
2.5 hour movie to begin with.
Exactly.
So it would have been a 3 hour movie.
Right.
But yeah.
And talking about exposition, like some of the Spielberg actually usually seems to always want to do exposition really clever, and the one that always jumps to my mind with exposition is the Jurassic Park movie that they watch.
Yes.
The little Disney movie.
Yeah.
Dino DNA.
Which is like legendary now.
Yeah.
It's legendary.
It's totally functional. It's a functional
yeah.
scene.
And,
Yes.
and we all
Yeah.
get it. It's tied into the theme park nature. We've all been to Disney World and seen those
Yep.
cheesy things before you get in the ride. It's great. He didn't do that with us. Instead of that, well, actually, there were scenes that were somewhat like that
Well,
later.
there
in the
were.
movie.
You know what? It almost like it needed. You guys have seen AI, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Remember the scene with Robin Williams as the hologram,
Yeah.
where it explains everything?
Yeah.
I was expecting
It
that.
works.
It works, number one, but I was also expecting like at some point someone would not know what the Oasis is,
Yeah.
and they would like either Parzival would be grooming them.
Well,
and they would. We needed a surrogate. We had
needed
no
a surrogate,
surrogate.
like he said.
So
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
your main character doesn't have to be the surrogate
No.
either. It
No.
can always be somebody else. for some reason, which jumps to mind, I'm sure you two have not seen this, but the pilot to the TV show Scandal of all, I'll make a weird
I
pull.
have not seen that. No.
It just has some random character, like her first, kind of being lured into her first day of work. So she's like, "Who are these people? Why are they hunting me down? Who is this person? Who is that person?" And it's a really good way for a pilot to get you within 5 minutes, know all the players, what they do, what they need to do, and then the POV kind of shifts back to the actual people at that point. They just kind of hand it back.
Yeah.
Can I throw out
And
another
your
one?
story begins.
I got one that this made me think of talking about this was Hellboy 1.
Yeah.
Myers, a character I don't think anyone cares or knows about now.
Yeah.
And the second movie, they literally throw him off with one line. They're just like, yeah, he went to Antarctica or whatever. But his character, which sucks in that movie, is only there to be explained to.
Right.
And it does a good job of setting up all of the, BRPT and everything and whatever. Yeah.
And I the difficulty in this story, the advantage of a surrogate character, if they would have added it, they could get rid of the whole prologue. The difficulty would be trying to figure out what kind of character wouldn't know this, because it seems
and it's so
pervasive
entrenched.
and entrenched in the world.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you could figure something out.
Yeah.
whether they
Oh,
were,
yeah. I like the economic idea.
The problem is
the not poor enough to even get in the Oasis. I think that would work.
I can point that out too. Like, not only is Parzival already totally there and totally owns this whole concept of the Oasis, but everyone we meet in his clan is a master of something.
Yeah.
Like H is she's building robots in there, which I don't even want to ask why you have to build things.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have
leaving
Shaito
that
and Toshiro, who are both like the world's greatest like ninjas, and it was like, okay, so everyone's already perfect.
Yeah, no, I know.
The only thing they haven't done is figure a riddle out.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they are the best.
Right.
He's like the best racer. She is, she's great too. And you got two ninja masters and one that's like a technical genius. Like, why haven't you guys done this already?
I know.
Yeah. Strangely enough, after that opening, I settled in and used the knowledge of the book and things I already knew about it. And I liked the movie.
I like the movie too,
which is a weird thing. I know it sounds like we're bagging on it.
I know,
but
I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all this I could complain about it for days, but I loved it. Yeah, I had a great time.
I had a lot. I mean, there's a ton of stuff I loved about it. The Shining sequence is fantastic.
Right.
The race is really great.
But
only Spielberg could do something that awesome. That is so great.
So another point about like the adaptations is Zak Penn added the race. That was something he did in his first draft, but a lot of the things like The Shining, that wasn't in the book.
That's what I heard.
Book, right?
It was if I remember right, it was something like a Blade Runner Voight Camp test. So it was very more psychological and less visual.
Gotcha.
So they went with The Shining, that big Shining scene in another way. Shining is kind of weird though, because they don't. Even though
it's 80s.
It doesn't feel 80. It was 1980, I think.
Okay, so it's
but it doesn't feel like an 80s thing.
No, like somebody who was into
also
80s.
With the one part of the Shining thing I would critique was that I don't think they didn't want to show Jack Nicholson's face.
Yeah, they avoided
that.
that.
And they leaned on that bathroom lady.
Yeah.
Which was odd. I was like, okay, now she's in the maze. All right, it doesn't matter. But I was like,
no, but
I don't know about his face.
I don't know about the. I don't know about the crowds you guys were with, but the crowd I was with really reacted audibly to that sequence. Like I haven't heard in forever. It was like, when she got into the room and
and then the blood flood and everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, the crowd I saw it with was really reactive for everything. I mean, like, and that actually distracted me a lot because it was annoying me. Because I was just like, okay, we're going to see a lot of references. I'm just going to take them in stride. So when I saw it a second time, in mostly an empty theater, I enjoyed the movie that much more.
Me too.
Because I was like, as all these problems exist, I was like, I actually think it kind of works in the end.
Yeah.
Like, as a movie, it still kind of works.
My complaints are all screenwriting based.
Right.
They're not. I enjoyed the movie a lot. Yeah.
I like the schmaltz at the end. I like the Spielberg schmaltz.
I don't mind the schmaltz.
I'll give one other screenwriting criticism as time. I really didn't have much more. Most of mine centered around the exposition and the opening.
I got more.
Okay, well, good. This is really my last one that I can think of. Was that the puzzles and the ongoing part didn't matter to me. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And I think it was the type of movie that, and maybe the book does this better. And again, I can't remember. Where it feels like we should have been learning the lesson Halliday was learning to solve, but instead it never really felt. It felt really quick to me. I wasn't really playing along with the hero.
Not at all.
Like in the best mysteries or puzzle movies, I'm playing along. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, it's going to be the Easter egg and adventure, you know, and I'm doing that like right when he's doing it or right before or right after.
Yeah.
Do you think the obscurity of that is because of that, or you think the movie just didn't handle it properly?
I think it could have done a better job of handling it properly.
Because I didn't know about that, about Adventure.
I did.
Okay.
And in truth, it seems like they figured it out 5 minutes before he figured it out. It was weird. It was like they said it and everybody was like, okay, obviously it's Easter egg. And then, oh, you're doing it to win the game. It's Easter. It's like, didn't we just talk about
they repeated it.
Yeah. I did. That's the thing I know about Adventure. That's a big deal for me because I played Adventure as a kid. That was a game I played. So that one, I totally understand why he puts that in there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Zak Penn directed that Atari movie. That's what I just remembered.
Right,
with Ernest Cline in it. And didn't Ernest Cline have a DeLorean, or did Zak Penn have it? Anyway, I think Ernest Cline owns one. But yeah, I don't know. To me, the mysteries were like, I just parked my brain.
They were underwhelming for you.
I didn't participate in the mystery aspect of it.
You were just waiting for them to get to something.
Get to it.
And especially as a kid from the 80s. I would have loved to participate in like piecing together like the meanings or the things or the this or the that. Maybe I'm giving them too much of a task. I mean, I understand.
Well, can I throw something out that might have worked?
Yeah, sure.
I think the thing that I actually would have leaned harder on in this movie, which the trailer really hinted at with the music, but I would have leaned harder on the Willy Wonka aspect of this.
Yeah.
I would have been
the ending is Willy Wonka.
Right, and I would have been fine with Halliday being an NPC character out throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like he's like, once you get the first key, like Halliday is just like your companion, and he'll like take you through this maze of weirdness that he created.
Cool.
Instead of you trying to accomplish tasks, like maybe the first task is the doorway to get into the chocolate factory.
Yeah.
And then you have to survive the chocolate factory to get to the end and then make your proper decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas that would he be active and you can make Halliday as weird as he's a great weird character.
He is a great weird character.
He was almost like Wayne's World or something. I don't know what was going on there.
Really
I loved him.
But if you did that too, instead of the museum, he could just have powers to show you things. Like in the spot, like you could have been like, "Well, I remember the day."
I'll answer any questions you have.
Exactly.
And, exactly. That might have fixed it, I guess. If I don't know, it would make you feel active and participatory.
More participatory,
because you've got a guide now.
Yeah,
like he's bringing you through, and then you might even be able to show, like, you know how the IOI guys maybe like show them interacting with the Halliday thing, and they're only there for business, so they don't really get this guy. Whereas you could have Parzival love talking to the NPC Halliday.
He's like, to them, he's like the Microsoft Word paperclip.
Right, exactly. They don't love this. Whereas Parzival is like in love with this guy. He he looks like Charlie looked up to Willy Wonka.
Yeah. That would have worked.
Okay, again, we're rewriting.
This whole movie. Not good.
So that's really all I had on Ready Player One.
Okay, I gotta. So okay. My next problem that I think could have been handled better is the antagonist. So for me, like, a character's victory is only as good as how difficult it was to like defeat the main villain, right? So for me, this was like Luke Skywalker defeating a Darth Vader that didn't know how to use the lightsaber. Like, he doesn't know how to play the fucking game. Like, how is that your main antagonist, you know?
Well, he, to me, felt like this was not to go back to Ferris Bueller, but he felt like an Edward Rooney type character. He was lame. He only cared about the rules and you know, getting further in life. He didn't care about this at all.
How are we supposed to perceive him as a threat if he, like, is a literal joke? Like, they get into his thing they get into his, like, game chair, and he's like he's got a Kegel exercises video and Nancy Drew, and he's got 69 in the password. Every single time that you learn something about the villain, the theater I was with laughed. Not laughed because it was fun to laugh because this guy sucks.
I would say one way to do that, I mean, I could see him sucking, but then having underlings that were really powerful, like IROC.
Yeah.
IROC was kind of a joke too.
Yeah, that's true.
At the end of the day, like I probably would have made IROC scarier or more powerful.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of the Boba Fett version that he was like a D&D character. That was that whole joke that I think we've seen too much lately.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like a basement dwelling weirdo.
He felt like he was in a commercial selling an app.
Right. Yeah, something like that.
But
yeah.
So it's not only Sorrento's character that bothered me. So essentially, like,
I like Sorrento's character, so I can't
okay,
agree.
good.
I don't agree
I mean,
with
he's
you.
like a good. He feels like
I kind of liked him too, but I really like that actor. I think that
yeah,
actor's
the act-
really.
I think the
good.
actor sells any
So-
shortcoming. Really,
No,
Ben
but
Mendelsohn's really good.
He's
their
really
goal,
good.
right? So the goal is they show us too on the screen, right? To me, if the villains win, not much changes. If the world is already like the Oasis is already monetized, people are already losing their entire earnings to the Oasis as is, and all that they're gonna do is just charge people more.
You know what?
Well, not necessarily true. They become the CEOs and they change how everything is. I would assume that debt and everything would be like erased. They wanted They said they closed it down on Tuesdays and Thursdays or Wednesdays.
No,
and
I'm
Thursdays.
saying
Because they care about the consumer, so they wouldn't let that happen anymore.
Well, he's saying it. The bad guys.
I'm saying
win.
if the bad guys win, all they're gonna do is charge the Oasis players more.
No,
Right.
he says in that one meeting that he's going to take up 80% of everyone's visual field with ads.
Okay,
He's
well,
going to completely ruin the
that's
Oasis.
like the world we live in today.
Well, yeah,
like-
but they make it pretty clear that IOI is going to ruin the Oasis.
okay.
He said he's going
They're gonna
to
make
secretly sell our
Facebook-
information
they're
to
gonna
the
make Facebook
Russians.
2018 out of Facebook.
Jamie's Russian.
Right. Well, I was going to make that same thing. I was going to say, pretend the Oasis is Facebook 2010. They're going to turn it into Facebook 2018.
No, I mean it sucks, but big deal. Is my problem is
The whole world economy is like the biggest
you know what I
economic
think though that's
resource.
an error of. I think that's an error of not setting the world
That's
to
my
the dystopian
you
thing
don't-
that we need to fix.
there's no evidence that anything would
'Cause-
change given
Right.
what they show us.
really,
and that's a problem for me.
really it's Darth Vader's empire,
right?
but we don't never feel it's because like we've been saying, it doesn't feel much different than today.
right.
But I think if they elevated it to Darth Vader's empire and just changing things in general is what needed to happen for us
Yeah.
to survive.
They
then that
also
would-
needed to sell the
needed to
point that if you die in the Oasis, it does ruin your life.
Yeah.
Because the oddness, we did. I mean, let's talk about stakes.
They showed the guy. They showed the guy jumping out, trying to jump out the window, and that was a good example. That it was visual. Like I
Yeah.
got that.
Yeah, maybe
Right,
because it
I
happened
guess
so
in the
fast, it
opening
was a
thing.
joke or something. You know, it's like,
It just seemed to me like it. What I didn't answer for me was okay. You're back at zero again, but you can still just go
Yeah.
in the Oasis and play, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't have any points anymore, but I can just restart,
It
right?
seems like big deal. You zero out, you go back in.
Right. It just
You
didn't.
know.
It didn't.
you're like, what did
Why
zeroing
did-
out mean?
Remember
in
when he
reality?
sets the bomb off at the end? I was like, can all those people just jump right back in?
That's exactly.
I didn't understand what was happening
Yeah.
there. I was like,
Yeah.
why can't
Why
they
can't
just
they
jump
go
back in?
And
Yeah, have
yeah.
less, and they don't have any items, but they can still be there.
Yeah.
with their, they all still have their, avatars and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Does that mean-
I did not totally understand. The way I rationalized it in my head was that was like a desperate play, blows all them up, and he'll get to it faster than they will. But that was as good as I could come up with.
Yeah, I
like he'll get back to that.
Well, he
random
has
spot.
IOIs like IOI itself will supply him with all the
All
stuff
the
in the
money.
Oasis.
Right.
That's why he had
But
Mecha
it's not
Godzilla and
skill.
stuff. He didn't earn Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's just
they
like
bought
he's
it.
got
for
a
him.
bunch of money. So stakes. Yeah. So yeah, lots of stakes problems for me. Same with and they kind of go hand in hand. The villain, right?
I thought they did some stuff right with the real world. They had them being hunted.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that was good. I
Yeah.
liked that.
If you took that out, I'd be like, nothing matters.
I liked
Yeah.
that.
But
My,
Yeah.
my,
I don't think that happened to the midpoint, if I'm mistaken. It was
Mm.
the dance sequence. I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly where that was, but
The-
Mid.
Mid.
When he uses the
When-
Zemeckis cube,
right.
Yeah.
I love this
which is not from the book.
That.
That's right
I
from the
love that.
Yeah.
No, so so I wrote down a couple lines just because I wanted to remember and talk about it. So he says, so they try really hard to tell us what's at stake, right? But like you said, they never show anything to support this. It's just like hearsay from a rich asshole. He says, there's nothing less at stake than the war for the control of the world. He literally says that. And then he's in the middle of the game, he says, "Oh, Holiday, this is how you plan to resolve the world's most important economic resource." That's literally all we're given about what's
I mean,
at
that is
stake.
something though, dude.
It's
I mean,
something, but it's like, okay. And then I felt like the stakes were raised. Okay, go
Jimmy.
ahead. Yeah.
for the day before Trump was elected to the day after, you don't notice much shit.
That's
But 4
true.
years later, you're gonna notice some shit.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Good call.
This isn't like the clock ticks over. IOI wins the Oasis. and then it instantly everything blows up. It's like the world's going to get progressively worse for the next like 30 years.
Yeah, I guess it just
It's a
for me
it's a slow deterioration.
To me, it was like Google's gonna own the internet, and like they already do. And so it felt the whole thing felt very weightless because of that for my experience.
They would
both times seeing it.
Also, I would assume that an IOI controlled Oasis would entice the human race to get way more involved in the Oasis too. You know what I mean? Like
That's good.
the two things we saw the version where they actually say no, you should log out, and we're going to force you to. Whereas the other one would be like, you should be here 24/7. They'd start building them like chairs where it just like, you know, intravenously feed you and you shit yourself, like in Surrogates,
like Up.
Or I was gonna say Surrogates with Bruce Willis again, but we've talked about before.
Surrogates,
the classic,
right?
The Bruce Willis classic,
right?
No, so just one more thing about stakes. So I think the movie reached its emotional peak like midway through. And that's when they blew up the stacks. They raised the stakes because they're willing to kill to win. They were willing to kill Wade. They thought they were killing Wade, but they didn't.
Right.
But after that, they're never willing to kill anybody else. Like, they kidnap Samantha. They don't kill her. They don't come in there and kill everybody in the Resistance. They just kidnap her and put her in a box. But it just didn't feel like it did feel like they were threatened, but I wasn't scared for them.
Well,
in either world, I wasn't scared of the threat.
I'll be the agent of
Yeah.
reason, I guess here.
That's my end negatives.
Well,
that's all of it.
But the Stax murder, the Stax murder was done by drones covertly, whereas like a lot of the other stuff, they're still the law. We were shown police. IOI is not the police, so I guess they didn't want to just like, you know, go into a building and shoot a bunch of kids.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like they're not monsters. They were still like a company. They're willing to murder someone covertly with drones.
Yeah,
but not just go and mow down children in an alley.
Yeah,
right.
So there's that.
Okay. Good point.
It's a different movie almost if that was going to be the case.
Oh, I agree.
You know,
but it's a more legitimate threat though.
It is, but this is also a kids movie. I think this is more of a kids movie.
I agree.
Yeah, this movie actually had a different tone than even the book.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you about.
It didn't feel edgy at all. It felt very safe. I agree with the kids movie aspect.
Sugary sweet.
Though I think there were they dropped a few bad words and stuff like that.
It's fucking Chucky.
That's the one F word.
I was like, wow, I can't believe it kind of shocked me out of nowhere.
That got such a response in the theater.
Same.
No, that was probably the biggest moment was Chucky of all things.
Oh, I loved it. I loved the fact that he was an NPC and he was a weapon and not a character.
Yeah.
I was like, that's hilarious, man.
I love the Mad Ball grenade. I mean, there's lots of stuff I loved. I loved a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I swear.
No, like you don't want to give in to all the member berries stuff. Like, you remember the glaive?
Remember?
I screamed when the glaive came up, and I was like, I never thought I'd see a glaive reference to Crawl.
The Tootsie Pop. The Tootsie Pop. He said, "Remember the Tootsie Pop commercial?"
When I saw it yesterday for this podcast, the one thing that made my jaw drop that I did not notice before was in the opening race. They drive past a marquee in a movie theater, and on the marquee it said Jack Slater 3, and I was like, what? Like, these are references that they're not even placating to everyone. You know what I mean? There's a lot of references that, like, Crawl is not, like, a beloved movie that I think that people going to see this would understand.
People my age, absolutely, like, every one of them knows Crawl, because we all saw it and we loved that thing. But, yeah, I can't imagine anybody under the age of 30, maybe.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that there's references here that were not made
not
to
under
placate
20.
to the obvious, you know?
Yeah.
Like, on that marquee, it could have said a billion different things.
Right.
But they chose a Last Action Hero reference.
Well, I think that was probably Zak Penn.
I know. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's like,
hey, I'm all about it. I love Last Action Heroes.
Me too. I do too.
That's the Alfred Hitchcock cameo.
Right.
Zak Penn. I would have totally done it. You know?
I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
But, yeah, that was just my reference bit. I don't. The Shining, I don't think plays to kids now.
No.
I think that whole they could have chose Beetlejuice or something way more that plays to what like nostalgia and like 30-year-olds now. But The Shining, I feel, is like a little bit removed.
Yeah. I agree.
Right?
I think a lot of people in the theater wouldn't know what that is.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I think H is like the surrogate for them, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen The Shining.
What's this?
Right.
Don't go into 237.
Right. Do you have anything else to say? We want to.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. I said my piece.
You said your piece,
Got any
Jamie?
more negative stuff, Jimmy?
I gotta say,
No.
I think Jamie was right. I think your hate kind of put hate to shame here.
Yeah, it did. It's sad.
Yeah.
It was you were pretty much positive, dude.
Yeah, I know. That's about as negative as I'm ever gonna get.
I mean, we all enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
It was like Bruce Banner gave the threat. We got him really angry, and he was still the same dude.
He grew like an inch.
Yeah.
You look a little bit pale. Sorry.
Yeah, my smile turned to a half grin.
You kind of like me when I'm angry. Well, I mean, I actually want to see this movie again.
Now that we're talking about it, yeah.
Or we can all just go read Armada, the next book.
Oh, it's
no,
this...
I'm not going to do that.
It's kind of his last action hero.
I didn't know that there was another
Came
one.
out a couple years ago.
Okay.
I don't think I have much interest in Ernest Cline as a writer at all.
Sorry,
I'm interested
Ernie.
in this as like a middling Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
And Spielberg's middle is usually other people's top.
I remember,
you know what I mean? So
I remember when we first started talking about this movie being made, you were curious if it was gonna kind of kill the nostalgia, but I don't think it's not.
It's not going to. I think if it was excellent, it'd have a chance.
It would be the end.
Yes,
that.
like we would be like, this is the ultimate master making the ultimate, diatribe about nostalgia in one go. And if it like hit like, like Black Panther, if it was like that big, maybe people would be like, you know what?
It's time to move forward.
It's time to move forward. Let's kind of forget this. Like, we get it. This wasn't, I would say this is not this was not toxic nostalgia whatsoever. This was not the movie that the haters
I agree with you.
thought it would
I agree
be.
with you.
Yeah. But no, it didn't change anything.
I don't think it's. I think nostalgia's going to continue to flourish.
No.
It's strange to me, but this movie doesn't feel like a crass cash-in of nostalgia.
I don't think so either.
It just feels
Says
like a
the
movie.
guy in the Flash Gordon
Exactly.
shirt.
Exactly. It just feels like I don't know. It feels more just like a story that's built upon certain things from a certain time.
I appreciated that about it.
And honestly, you know what? Like, if the Oasis did exist, it would just be that.
It would.
Yeah.
It would.
I'd probably be RoboCop or some crap. You know what I mean? Like, people
Climb
would do...
Mount Everest with Batman.
Right, exactly.
I'd be wearing
people
a Flash Gordon shirt.
Jamie would just be Jamie with a Flash Gordon shirt. You wouldn't be Flash Gordon? Or...
No.
Come on, Ming, at least?
No. I'd carry around a watermelon. Do you remember the football scene?
Right. All right, we're good? No one else had anything to say?
Exposition.
I think we're good.
I'm good.
RPO, we all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is not that hateful of a man.
No.
Not at all.
He's
That's
not
what
that
we learned
negative.
today.
That's what we learned. That's the real lesson of RPO. Jimmy's a nice guy. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.